So I was part of a 55 strong Australian contingent that was deployed to Canada. Our team was actually deployed to Ontario, where we were separated into two incident management teams, and we travelled as far north as Red Lake and Back Lake in the far north of Ontario. Our incident management team was responsible for looking after about 27 fires. Most of those were considered as being observed or bob fires, but there were 3 of those fires which were at a very large scale at over 100 to 200,000 hectares each, and those 3 fires were threatening First Nations communities such as Pekanjikum and Poplar Hill and Deer Lake. So our objective was to work on those fires and protect those very isolated First Nations communities. The First Nations communities are very remote. There's no road access, and the only road access is during the winter months when the lakes freeze over to about 1.5 metres to 2 metres deep of ice, so that the trucks and vehicles can get up there. Otherwise, it's all accessed via planes and helicopters. So each of those communities has their own airstrip, and roughly about 2,000 people living in each of those communities. So the objective of the incident management team was to prioritise the eastern flanks of those fires burning towards the remote communities, and to get crews out onto the fire line in that remote terrain, transporting them by specialised aircraft, helicopters or planes, out onto the field and putting them on the line for 14-day periods. The systems and firefighting operations in Ontario is very much driven by the landscape. It's a very flat area with lots of lakes, but is extremely remote. So crews can't access by the way we would normally do it, by sending a fire truck. The crews are deployed through the use of specialist aircraft such as float planes, or as we would call them, seaplanes, or medium helicopters such as your Bell 412 or 214s are fairly common, and the crews are well accustomed to working out of those aircraft. So they're deployed either for an initial attack or for a sustained operation. And in this case, they were working as a sustained operation where they're supported for 14-day periods, camping on the fire line, and working in approximately 1 kilometre to 2 kilometre length. So they're well accustomed to establishing hose lines from the nearest lake, running those hose lines and working with hand tools to work on the edge of the fire. Whilst those fires don't burn as rapidly as what they do in Australia, they can be more intense and certainly burn underground for a lot longer than what happens in Australia. So there needs to be far more attention to mopping up and blacking out. So crews can literally be working there for 2 weeks and camping in their online camp.
So this is a typical ranger camp here. Each ranger has their own little personal tent, and then there's a big bug tent, we call it, where the crews will eat and cook meals and whatnot, and get out of the bugs more than anything, and then sleep in their little shelters here. All right, guys. If you're ever lost in the bush in northern Canada, we've got these white birches, and they're real great for fire starters. So you just simply kind of peel off. This is a small piece here, and even if it's wet, you can just simply give it a flick of the bick here, and she goes up pretty quick. And you can start a fire even if it's raining out. This will just burn away. And you can get big chunks. You can even light this tree on fire, it'll burn the whole way up. There you go. Yeah, right. There's your fire. Got some smegma moss here. You don't go down very far, and that is bone dry. That is bone dry. Look at that. That'll easily burn within a few days. This old man's beard too. Old man's beard, they love to eat that. It grows all over these pine trees. And obviously when this burns, you know, it shoots off fire braids. This old man's beard goes shooting off, and you get spot fires everywhere. It burns real easy.
This is the Bog crew, and we're coming off of pad 19 on Red 16.
And how many days you been out in the field?
This is day 14 for us.
Day 14, out in that. So tell us a bit about what kind of work you've been doing.
So this fire is a project fire for us. So we've been on 3 different lines, and we've been mostly just patrolling, looking for hotspots with hand tools and buckets of work. lay any hose, so it's just been a hand tool, shovel, and chainsaws for us. You guys have been awesome. I know that your operations are pretty different from what we do here, so you guys have done an unreal job in cutting into our operations and ideas out here.
So I was deployed as the operations chief, and the operations chief is essentially responsible for coming up with the strategies and tactics for the frontline firefighters, overseeing the sector fire boss who looks after the crews on the ground. And because of the remoteness, most of the work is actually done from aircraft, flying over the fire ground and monitoring the fire behaviour and obtaining the situation reports directly, because there's no direct radio contact back to the forward attack base where the IMT is established. The incident management teams were based at either a base camp, a forward attack base, or a fire management headquarters centre. And again, the structure of those command posts is very detailed and complex, with many support mechanisms such as kitchens, warehouses and air bases, all able to support the fireground operations.
G'day, I'm Rolf Poole and I'm from the Hornsby Ku-ring-gai district.
And I'm Lachlan Gilchrist and I'm from Lake George district.
Here we are in the far north of Ontario in Canada, just north of Red Lake at a forward attack base known as Back Lake. This is where our base camp is set up with our full IMT, air base and all the facilities we need for the fire operation that we've got here today.
Just wanted to take you on a bit of a tour today of what we're doing at Back Lake and introduce you to some of the people in the IMT that we're working with.
Hi, my name is Kevin Parkinson. I'm the incident commander for the Australian Incident Management Team here on the North Back Zone. Our mission here is to manage 3 fires that we're actively fighting, and also looking after the North Back Zone for initial attack and any new fire.
Hi, my name is Cassie Campbell and I'm the resource unit leader.
Hey, I'm Scott Keelan and I'm the plans chief.
I am Steph Howard and I'm the IT person.
Hi, my name's King Wright. I'm facilities unit leader on the team.
Hi, I'm Matt Goldman. I'm the section unit leader for logistics.
Hi, I'm Ashley Austin and I'm the time unit leader.
Hello, my name is Morgan Bonner. I'm working as the finance section chief.
Oh, hey, I'm Brandon Soyet. I work out of Fort Francis, Ontario. I'm up here as a heli-tac technician, but I'm out there in a support role, so I'm moving crews into pads, swapping them in and out to hit hot spots, occasionally getting out of my machine, letting them hook up the bucket to provide ground support for the crews, and then even just your basic milk runs, right? Bringing the crews food every day, making sure they've got enough water, taking their garbage out of the bush so they don't have bear issues.
Why can't they do that themselves? No, seriously, like, where are we? Like, why is that so important?
Because, I mean, I could pull out the map and show you. I mean, these are remote wilderness locations. It's typically a very unique work setting. I'm talking like this camp is pretty remote. Well, these guys are 60, 80 nautical miles into the middle of nowhere, the great beyond, essentially.
Hi, so I'm Kevin Kirchhoff. Brandon said I'm here as a sector leader, but you know, same thing. I'm kind of going over to head the fire. I'll go in the morning, brief the crews, because of course they camp out here on the fire or on the fire line. So we got to go in every day, every other day, bring them food orders, and so I'll go in there and kind of coordinate what the objectives are for the day and work with Brandon. And they'll do the crew flips, and then we'll work together and just talk to each other about what we're observing for fire behavior, what we think are our priorities for keeping these fires wrapped and keeping these fires from spreading any further towards the community.
Hey there, I'm Hawks. I'm also out here as a heli-tac technician. My role is a little bit different than Mr. Soyet's over here. I'm handling the initial attack crews, so I'm basically supervising, wrangling all the crews here that are here to go off to the new fire starts in the district.
So in amongst all of that isolated terrain and all of the lakes, there's a lot of assets or values, such as campers' huts or fishing huts, accommodation complexes, as well as the First Nations communities. So protecting those isolated values it can be quite difficult. So there's a process of establishing values protection systems, or essentially a sprinkler system. So the crews will set up a pump and hose lay and put sprinklers on the roof and around the building, and they can fly in, turn that sprinkler system on and fly out as the fire approaches. Normally in Australia we would park a fire truck at one of those locations, but obviously there's no capacity to do that. So their system is very much built up for working in that remote terrain.
My name is Josh Kester, and we've been doing values in Poplar Hill.
So what's values for the guys back in Australia?
So if you pan over there, you can see the sprinkler head. So we set up sprinkler heads running off the pump system to create an RH bubble around anything that's of value, so like structures mainly. Yeah.
Yeah. So where are you guys heading now?
We're heading back home to Red Lake.
And you say you're heading back in this?
Yeah, so this is pretty useful for us for when we go to kind of more remote cabins and stuff like that, because you can get in better than a helicopter with them. And yeah,
so is that pretty common in this part of the world?
Yeah, we'll use them quite a bit in the summer to either move crews or get into tighter spots to set up sprinkler systems. And
so a key component to working remotely is the use of the aircraft, and therefore aviation specialists. So Australians supplied a number of aviation specialists, not only ops chief but also air attack supervisors or HELCOs, and sector leaders and sector fire bosses all have to have aviation experience. In this case we had Australians fulfilling the role of helitac technicians, which is a role that directly supports the crews on the ground. So they work out of a medium helicopter such as a Bell 214, supplying hoses, food and picking up rubbish, and they do daily check-ins around the fireground. And it can take all day to fly around the fireground, dropping into each one of those fire camps. And it's their responsibility to be able to work in and around the aircraft, picking up that heavy equipment and dropping off any specialist equipment, and can be dropped from the air to drop points along the way. So it was great to work with our Australian aviation specialists in that field.
Hi everyone, my name's Ash. I'm from the New South Wales Rural Fire Service, currently in Back Lake, Ontario in Canada. My role over here at the moment is a fire sector boss. Part of that role entails looking after a division on a fire. Some of the challenges we face over here, a bit different than Australia, it's remote access, so it's via helicopter only to these crews.
Hi, I'm Rowan Lund from Southern Highlands Team, Wingecarribee, New South Wales. My role here in northwestern Ontario is as HELCO, or Helicopter Coordinator. It's similar to an air attack supervisor back in Australia, and essentially the role is to direct and coordinate water bucketing operations over the fire.
Hey folks, Mike Chaplin, Air Ops Branch Director here with the Parkinson's team in Back Lake, Ontario. I'm in charge of essentially all air operations and air assets. I did a tour over in Australia in 2019, worked out of the base of Maria. Was there for 6 weeks, really enjoyed the team aspect, and we're all fitting in really well together here.
So firefighting is recognised as being inherently dangerous, and there's all sorts of hazards that face firefighters, particularly wildland firefighters or bush firefighters. In Australia we have all sorts of animals or critters that can harm or kill you, snakes and spiders. But in Northern America there's different sets of wildlife that can harm or kill you. We did come across a number of black bears, and we're certainly given training and were briefed on what to do if we came across black bears. There were a few instances where the bears came into the forward attack base at Back Lake and at some of the base camps. During periods of drought they were seeking out food, and they're generally very inquisitive animals and can generally be scared off with noise or human interaction. But from time to time they do get aggressive and they can be territorial. There was a couple of instances where there were crews who were camping out on the fire line who were reported that they had a bear near camp, and on a couple of instances those crews were extracted using the helicopters to pull them in and bring them back to the forward attack base, and we had to go back and retrieve their gear at a later date. Bears will actually open up an esky or a cooler. They'll go through a camp searching for food and are generally very inquisitive, so it's not uncommon to have an esky with bear teeth marks in it. They'll actually bite into fuel containers, including propane gas containers. So they are very strong and can be very territorial. So it's important that the crews have an awareness and they have their protection systems and they know what to do in case of an aggressive predatory bear. On one occasion, as the ops chief, I was flying the fire to get some situational awareness. So we had a radio call whilst we were in the aircraft to go and check on a crew. They had a troublesome bear, an aggressive bear in camp, and they needed to be extracted immediately. We were flying some 20 nautical miles away at the opposite end of the fire. I was able to punch into the fire mapper system on my tablet, find their location and go directly to their location. On arrival, we made contact via the radio, and they were in a fairly panicked state over the radio, stating that they were running out of fuel, which meant that they were using their chainsaw to scare the bear away, but were running out of fuel.
And Chris came running over, grabbed the saw, which was right here. The bear started walking to the pad. Then it started like coming at us, started revving the saw, so it kept going around us. Probably did its first lap around us. Had a fairly good berth. We're just kind of here talking. Chris has the saw. I got the sat phone right there, making a phone call. And bear probably does a full lap around, got the phone call in. Then it was definitely like coming at us at different angles slowly, and we just were running around the bug tent, basically trying to keep the bug tent in between us and the bear. The guy with the saw was always getting like kind of close, trying to scare it away, but it would keep coming at us until you really rev the saw, and then it would back up a little bit. So this one goes on for like 10 minutes. Right about, the bear's right on the other side of the bug tent here. Chris is like right here with the saw. This is like the final moments where the saw dies. Yeah. The bear's in this little thicket of trees over here. And
then we
grabbed the axe. We
So how close was he just here?
Like the bear was probably where Chris is now,
Yeah,
and
right.
Chris was right here. And we were like kind of hiding on this side. And then we retreated up this rock, I remember.
Yeah.
When I revved it up really loud and I had it over my head, it climbed up a tree there and then the thing died, and as soon as it died, it came in.
Yeah.
It was like
Without
that's
hesitation,
their like their defenses are down kind
It
of
was
thing.
always
Like,
very close to us. Like even when we were down here, it was on that rock. Like it was a constant just like circling, trying to like get behind it.
So then right near the saw died, Chris was like right here. Then the bear kind of notices the saw dies, and so we started walking this way, and the bear like immediately starts running from there this way to like cut us off. So it's running around these down trees. Bryn was probably a few feet from where you're standing there when it really started running like really hard right around this down tree here. It got like right to where these little tiny trees were here. I probably was right here with the axe when it finally stopped doing its fake little paw on the ground and jumping up. And then from there, that's when like we got basically the helicopter call, and we're backing up this way down the trail back to the pad. And it was following us basically right along the same trail when you guys showed up.
Because it was bad because...
And then you scared it off into the bush a little bit that way.
Like before we had the higher ground and it was kind of over here so we could see it. Then when it like chased us in here, then we're like stuck with all the food and we're like, well, this isn't good. So then that's when you guys came in, we just sprinted to the pad.
It was really sneaky how it would come in too. Like that at one point I was standing in that corner there trying to get my knife out, and Bryn screamed, "It's right beside you!" And it was right here.
Yeah.
So like we basically had like corner away from each other.
Like it was always very close to us.
But he was sneaky how he got in that close to us. I was looking the wrong direction. He comes in from the side on me.
And as we came in over the lake to their location with the helicopter, we could see the three of them backed up against the lake, and this aggressive bear standing up on two legs coming towards them. They had run out of fuel and they had no protection left. So we came over with the helicopter and scared the bear away, and it sort of ran off about 50 metres, and that gave us the opportunity to chase the bear, chase it into the woods. We then circled back and to check that it was still going, but it had become accustomed to helicopters landing at their camp helipad. So it was no longer scared by the helicopter and was walking back very aggressively towards the crew. We then came in to land and quickly scrambled to get the crews on board. So we were in a long ranger, so there was adequate seats and racking for their equipment. Crews came in, we got them quickly on board, but at all times I was very conscious that the bear could still come in underneath the rotor blades through the bushes. And where they're located, the helipad that they created was created out of cut logs, and the skids of the aircraft, because we had to land so quickly, the skids of the aircraft were just off the back of the logs and sinking into the peat moss and into the bog. And which meant that the tail rotor was getting lower and lower. So the more weight we put on the aircraft, the more we were sinking. So it was a case of getting in as quickly as possible, as safely as possible, and getting off the ground, all while still we had the threat of the bear coming in underneath the rotor blades. So once we got airborne, radioed in to say we had everyone on board, they were all safe, and we just made a quick landing onto the nearest helipad that we could. Which was only about a 2 kilometre flight away. Then exited the aircraft and just made sure it just accounted for everybody. In those moments of getting everyone on board, it's not just about the bear, it's about the helicopter safety, making sure we accounted for everybody. Generally the crews are a crew of 4, and this was a crew of 3, so I had a heart-stopping moment of trying to account for the 4th person, but quickly worked out it was only a crew of 3. But had we been more than 30 seconds later, I dare say any one of those individuals would have been potentially mauled, or there would have been a serious injury with that bear. So yeah, we found working with the Canadian crews was just a great experience. Wonderful people, and certainly the crews that we met out in the field, the Type 1, Type 2 crews, also the incident management personnel. Australians and Canadians seem to connect very easily and have similar sort of humour. Getting to know a lot of the crews out in the field and having the opportunity to drop into their fire camps, say hello and work with them was certainly a rewarding opportunity. Very professional at what they do and highly skilled at working remotely, and highly skilled at the firefighting operations that they're used to. And if the opportunity presents itself, I think it'd be great for those guys to come out to Australia.